Hello, I am Linda Dotson Hubbard, and I've been asked to speak to you all a little bit about uh, my memories and my time with Carrie Lee Dotson Nelson, the wife of Gaylord Nelson, the father of Earth Day. Unbeknownst to a lot of folks, most folks in this, I would guess, Carrie Lee is a native of Pound, Virginia, Wise County. She was born in a holler up on Bowl Camp called Dotson Holler. I know this strictly from what folks have told me, and she never mentioned Dotson Holler actually um, when in our times together, but she was born there, and during her time here, I think that's where she mostly stayed, although there was the possibility that she had gone to Wise when her parents went to Wise to operate a boarding house, which is one of the things they were doing after she was born. In 1926, she was born in 1923, January of 1923, and in 1926, her father, my grandfather, Albert Dotson Sr., died of what's recorded as heart dropsy. And Carrie Lee was the ninth child of 10 children that Delcy and my grandfather Albert had. And after he died, my grandmother had four little children, and then the older ones, most of them were up and could take care of themselves. But grandmother Delcy had such a hard time trying to make a living that she really was in poverty and in dire straits. During this time, she also had lived up in Mill Creek, where her family was, the Branham family. Most of them lived on big farms up on Mill Creek. So with the encouragement of her family, she started listening to the Masons, which grandfather Albert was high up in the Masonic lodge locally. And the Masons suggested, since they had the organization had an orphanage in Richmond, why didn't Grandma let the little ones go live in the orphanage, be taken care of there, and grow up there? And the kids could come home periodically, but they would be fed, educated, clothed, and taken care of in Richmond. So this is after 1926, and Carrie Lee, it's been recorded that she went into the Masonic home when she was 3, but in fact, I've read other places, and herself, she recorded that she was 6 when she went to the Masonic home. She and her younger brother, Ralph, who was 1 year younger than she, went to the Masonic home in 1930, and her older brother, Delmer, and Virgil already were there and had been there a little while. Grandma Dotson records, I wanted to read to you all what she recorded, that she was driven up there by a member of the Masons with the children, and she left them there in Richmond, and she was so full of recrimination. She recorded where she cried most of the way home. She felt so guilty. She felt like folks was saying that she had deserted her children, when in fact this was a duty that she had done out of need. if her children were to be properly taken care of, she needed help, and this is where the help was going to be. So Aunt Carrie Lee grew up in Richmond, and there she could spend time with her brothers that were there. And in fact, her older brother Delmer was kind of her hero. There's the story goes that he was looking for her one day, and he went into the cafeteria, and there she was sitting all by herself with the matron standing over her. And when he inquired what was going on, Carrie Lee said, "I can't get up from here until I clean my plate." And her plate was full of cold, stringy spinach. And Carrie Lee was kind of crying. So Delmer, who everybody loved Delmer, he was gifted. He could play an instrument. He was a star football player. He was a very gifted, well-liked young man. He picked up the spinach off the plate, threw it on another plate, turned to the matron and said, "Her plate's empty now." And he took her by the hand, and they left, and the matron didn't say anything because Delmer could get away with things like that. And Aunt Carrie Lee always said that he was her hero. So she grew up there, and in fact, when she was 18, she went to nursing school. And after she was certified as a nurse, she joined the Army. And if you've read Tom Brokaw's book, The Greatest Generations, he does a really nice piece about Aunt Carrie Lee and her time, her romance with Gaylord Nelson during their Army years. I think she was a lieutenant and he was a captain when they started seriously dating. And so later on, they did get married after they got out of the service. And from there, he, of course, became the governor of Wisconsin. They lived in Madison, Wisconsin, and she was his supportive wife. So after Aunt Carrie Lee and Gaylord Nelson got married, he soon went from state senate to governor of Wisconsin to the federal senator representative for the state of Wisconsin. And consequently, they soon moved from Clear Lake, Wisconsin was his hometown, but from Madison, where he lived as a governor, to Kensington, Maryland, with their 3 children, Gaylord Jr., Happy, and Tia, and Jeff, the youngest son. They landed in Kensington, Maryland, and while Gaylord went on about the business of being Wisconsin's good Democrat senator who was all about taking care of this earth, Aunt Carrie Lee found herself being the glue that held this wonderful family together, and a good wife who was known for her Southern charm and her ability to throw a good party and be socially fun. And I think she also was outrageously hostess who could give you the mostest. I always look forward to having Aunt Carrie Lee come visit us, which she did as time went on, she came down to visit family, and regrettably, she also came a lot to visit whenever there were deaths in the family. I particularly recall the sad time when Grandma Delcy Dotson passed, her mother, who had lived in Florida, but she was she died up here with her sister, with her daughter, and Aunt Carrie Lee came down for that funeral. And these types of visits, she could stay a while. And then when Aunt Lola, her sister, died, Aunt Carrie Lee came down for that. And these types of visits, she stayed more than a day or so. One of the nicest visits I recall was she came down just to visit with friends and spent an afternoon here at the house with us and dinner. She brought Tia with her, Tia, who at that time worked for the Nature Conservancy, and a cousin, Irene Adams, came. We had a wonderful dinner, and we proceeded to talk about I was telling Tia about the land the Nature Conservancy had bought for the state of Kentucky, Bed Branch Falls, and Tia got so interested she decided, wouldn't it be nice if we could go hike that? And surprise, surprise, Aunt Carrie Lee said she would like to accompany us. So we loaded up and went to Bed Branch Falls and walked as far as Aunt Carrie Lee could walk. And Tia and my sister Helen went on up to the top of the hill to see the falls. And to be in the woods with Carrie Lee, to be in that environment and to talk on a personal level was just very rewarding. And she was such a special person to me. And she was so interesting because I didn't know anyone quite like her. She made me want to try escargot, which she told me how she prepared it and served it for her party friends. Escargot, as you know, is snails, and also she had a manner about her. She called someone a bitch, and I was kind of shocked. But you know, the way she said it, it was almost like a term of endearment. So she was just pleasant to be around. Let me say that personally, she was a nurse, and I'm sure that she was a nurse early on when they first got married, and probably continued in Maryland for a while. But I do know that she did volunteer for hospice nursing, and that had to be very difficult. I thought about that and admired her very much for doing that. She had a heart for people who had problems. I just guess that it's because of her own upbringing, which was, to live separate from her family, but to also know about the poverty of her in her past, and some of her family still endured. She was always concerned about those issues, poverty and health, of people she loved and cared about. She was gracious enough once, whenever we went to visit her in Maryland. This was after Uncle Gaylord died. She let us go through his office, and it was quite a something. He had all these pictures of these famous people, politicians. There's a picture of her and Aunt Carrie Lee and Jackie and John Kennedy and Uncle Gaylord. Lots of politicians, as well as some famous movie stars and famous other type people. And she then offered to let us, her nieces, select one of Gaylord's books to keep. And I thought that was so magnanimous of her. One of the books that we took was his last book, Beyond Earth's Day, Fulfilling the Promise. The book opens with, he was a fan of Leopold, I forget his name. Let me see. Aldo Leopold. the land ethic. And he opens the book with this statement that he made when in a speech: nations can recover from lost wars, witness Germany and Japan, but there is no recovery from a lost ecosystem. And that was Earth Day 1993. He goes on in this book to tell his take on the economy and ecology working together. And I really liked his point in that. But one of the things that's in this book is this song. Oh, beautiful for polluted skies, for lakes of acid rain, for garbage mountains piled up high above the toxic plains. America, America, we shed our waste on thee and ignore the signs that nature cries from sea to oily sea. Anyway, if you want to get this book, I think I probably is still available. And another book I recommend to you is a book which covers the life of Aunt Carrie Lee's hero brother, Delmer Dotson. Delmer he was killed in World War II. He went down in his B-17 plane over New Guinea. The plane or the crew's body was not found for 50 years. And in fact, it was Aunt Carrie Lee's DNA that identified Delmer as part of that crew. And he's now in the Arlington Cemetery. And Carrie Lee was presented with his flag since everyone else has passed on. Time does go. I just want to tell you that this lady is so special, and she is a child of Southwest Virginia. She is a representative of what's good in the mountains, and on the Washington D.C. political platform, she represents us. She represented us very well. I'm so proud to say that I am her niece and that she lived and that she was part of us. And thank you. Unfortunately, funerals would bring her home for more lengthy stays. When Aunt Lola died, I was the one who took Aunt Carrie Lee around back up and forth to Big Creek, uh, Kentucky, and we had some really interesting conversations in those trips. Um, and when Grandma died, got to know Aunt Carrie Lee a little bit more then. Just the general conversations. Her discussion of family and the family that she missed was always very kind. I know only she could tell you what went on in her heart when she knew that she grew up in Richmond, and yet her sister Laura and Lola were continued to be down here in this area near her her mother and what she knew of her family. Um, and you would have to ask her. Ask her when you see her. I hope that you understand that this woman from Southwest Virginia went on to do great things with a background that could have been not so great, but she employed it, carried it with her. I think the newspapers used to talk about her Southern charm and her popularity in giving parties and being sociable. So she was a representative of us on the platform of Washington politics. I'm so proud to say that Carrie Lee Nelson is my aunt and has come from Pound, Virginia. Thank you.